sadly, the world we're in now, you can't necessarily take a Rolex everywhere or anything that looks like a Rolex.
And today, to keep it on point, we are going to talk about travel watches.
Hello.
Hi, James.
Thanks for having me in this awesome little studio that I wish I could live in.
We've just been sitting in this space going, look at this space.
I was trying to figure out there's no bathroom, but I was trying to figure out if I could still make this work with my wife somehow. I reckon, you could have like a hose coming from above and that would be enough because this is vibey, man. I wish I lived here.
We are in Chiswick in London, aren't we?
We are, yeah.
We're not too far from where you live.
And you.
True. Touche, sir. And today, to keep it on point, we are going to talk about three. You set the challenge. What is it? Travel watches.
I've got to caveat it with saying it depends where I'm traveling because sadly, the world we're in now, you can't necessarily take a Rolex everywhere or anything that looks like a Rolex. So this selection is based on somewhere that maybe you don't have to worry too much about that threat. So I'm thinking Middle East, Singapore,
Australia.
Mate, still though, because I hear some rumors that even down there's a few issues with Rolex.
Is that right?
It's a shame. I hope not.
I'm out of touch. So hey, Australians, comment now. Is it safe to wear Rolex? Is James setting himself up for an amputation?
Yeah.
An involuntary amputation.
So what I tend to look for when I travel is I like having a bit of variety. I mean, I did when I used to tour a lot more around the world. I would take like 6 watches with me. And I realized that was a bit ridiculous because I found that I was only really wearing maybe 3 out of that 6 rotation.
And don't you find like when you're traveling and you do that panicked 3 a.m. wake up in a hotel going, where am I? Where's the bathroom? Where's my watches? I do that. I do that quick inventory of like, and often I draw a blank on at least one of those 3. I'm not sure entirely where I am or where the bathroom is, but I've reduced the number of watches I take on trips because that panic is reduced when there's only one and I immediately go, and it's a big pilot sitting up next to me on the bedside table or whatever.
I've got a question for you, actually. Would you rather leave one of your favorite, most sentimental watches in a hotel room that you can't get back, or leave your passport behind and ruin the trip that you're on and have to go through the whole thing of like, well, you'd have to go to the embassy, try and get an emergency passport. I mean, it's a pretty easy answer, right? You'd lose the passport. I don't know why. That's a stupid question.
Yeah. Did that come from personal experience?
No. Luckily not. But
have you ever had that dilemma? And like, why did you give me that exact
watch or a passport?
Dilemma?
No, but it was making me think. Whenever I'm, especially in an airport hotel for an early flight, what I tend to do is I sleep in my watch, which if you're talking like tool watch or diver, that's fine. But some of the dress watches, I just never like sleeping in. That's another question, actually. How many people... typically for me, after I've had a bottle of wine, I'll be like, I'm going to sleep in the watch tonight. That's me being naughty in my sort of like 30s married life.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to get kinky tonight, people. This thing's staying on.
So the watches that I've selected here now, when I'm traveling, I tend to think, right, I need something ideally not too expensive. I hate the term beta, and it's not really a beta, but something that I can chuck on and not worry too much. I then also need something at the other end that can tick the dressy option, but I get very bored with just like typical time-only dress watches, so I try and like mix up the dress watch option. And then also I want something that I can swim in and do absolutely everything. So that's where I go when I'm selecting maybe 3 to 4 watches with my world touring.
Okay. Very thoughtful, very mindful, a little bit demure. Should we do a wrist check? What are you wearing out there? This is a casual catch-up with James and I. We've already spent an hour talking about cats and acting.
Life.
Everything else. Let's use this fancy overhead camera.
Here we go.
And let's see if we can hit our spot, because in about effing time I never got this. Do you want to have a try? You're a musician, you're probably going to nail it.
Okay. No, this is awful. How do I do this? Oh, there we go. So I've got my Grand Seiko SBGM 221, which is actually my wife's, but this is going to be like an honorary mention on the travel watches, because for me, like I was saying before, I find time-only dress watches a bit boring. Having the blue GMT hand, and also GMT is my favorite complication. Yeah, I know that spring drive is kind of what people love, but I think that high beat movement as well is great from Grand Seiko. And this model in particular, I think, was maybe a bit under the radar until recently. And now the amount of people that stop me or my wife and say, oh, is that GMT from Grand Seiko, is kind of crazy. A lot of people wouldn't even realize that it is blue, that GMT hand, but it just offers a little bit of flair every so often that makes it, in my eyes, not as dull as perhaps it would be if it didn't have that GMT. There it is. Look at that.
Yeah.
And you know what do you want when you're traveling? I mean, for me, GMT complications great, and then also the date. I mean, it kind of almost does everything, this watch, for me. What are you wearing?
Well, you said let's do travel watches. I was super lazy. I still have the watches that I took to Australia for 3 weeks in the Zenith case that they traveled in. So I just thought I'm going to bring them. And then I took off my Toledano and Chan because I thought, no, the other watch I wore on the recent trip was of course, look at that.
Yeah.
Was this one. So this is the Sundowner. And I think I was still on such a high from the November launch and also was going back to Australia, and there's something that I know I talk about it a lot, but there is a connection between Tag and Australia that is, it's just real. Like,
yeah,
it feels like a really Aussie watch. And I know that we kind of told the story that way, but it really is the gold and the anthracite and the whole Sundowner kind of theme. So that was one. And then I've got my other 3 in here, but knowing YouTube as I do, delayed gratification is sometimes good. What could be in this little 3-pack? But why don't we start with you? So
okay,
I will. My travel watches are just watches I haven't worn that I want to wear that are viable for, like, you're kind of thinking I have to be prepared to maybe lose these to an extent. Like you couldn't take something that was if I was traveling for 3 weeks. I don't know if I would take an irreplaceable watch or something. My most expensive watch, I don't know.
I do that.
Do that.
I'm insured. Please don't mug me. No,
hypocritical.
I think
you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean, but I think in a world where, say for example, maybe we start here.
Yeah.
Where is the camera? There it is.
There it is.
In a world where Rolex...
Didn't you say you can't travel in Rolex?
Well, no, exactly. But so what I mean is, in a world where now I see... I've got a friend that lives by Liverpool Street in London. It's like, very corporate, very like bankery area. And I see so many Submariners on bracelets or like GMT Master 2s, etc., that have never even seen water, let alone been dived in. So what I'm trying to do now is, as I said at the start, wear safe. I will wear, this is my first watch, this Submariner, and I love the thought of taking that and swimming in it, doing what it was designed to do. And when I first got this Submariner,
I tried it on MN strap. Is this an Erica's original?
So this was from Zulu Alpha, and actually, when I was at the Time+Tide event, I saw my friend Rob. I think he had a Vertex on this Commando strap.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Where is that from?" And he said, "Oh, it's from Zulu Alpha." And I've known Zulu Alpha for years, and I was like, "I have to get." It's the most like awkward thing to get used to putting on that strap, right? I know. But when you get it, it's like it's easy. And I'm probably gonna get this wrong, but I'm pretty certain that this fabric is like 70 years old, military issued fabric. I don't know where they got it from. It's like a repurposed.
Okay.
So I love the thought of this strap. It's got a bit of stretchy, and you just feel like that is how I want my Submariner to be every time I put it on. I'm not a massive bracelet fan anymore. Go on, get it under that. Look at that, and it's just like look at that. I can swim in that. I can do everything. I feel like I could. I don't know.
It's controversial. I'm not going to necessarily side with this choice straight up.
Go on, here we go.
I have voiced my opinions. I'm calling this a maxi case Rolex, like a ceramic bezel Rolex.
Mm-hmm.
I find that they're almost unhackable strap-wise. And Adrian had an impassioned rant on About Effing Time about how they make them purposely sharp.
Yes, yeah.
Rip any aftermarket straps to pieces. And I do tend to agree that they make it very hard to marry any other straps up. But I am feeling some feelings. This actually feels more cohesive than a standard fabric strap.
Yeah.
because of maybe just because the elastic makes it all just sort of snugger, maybe.
I think so. I also
cumbersome.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You know what I mean?
I also think though it's funny that I just said about I see so many Rolex that never go in the water or whatever. I wear that watch because I wish I was in the SAS. Like that combo, I'm like, I could storm the beaches, I could parachute.
Yeah.
I'm never going to do those things either. But there's just a rugged feel to that combination.
You could write a damn song in this watch.
Literally.
You could storm a bridge and write an amazing chorus in it.
Yeah. So that's for me. That I when I first got that sub, I took it around the world on a couple of world tours, and it was just before. I mean, it's before the pandemic, so one where those things weren't double on the grey market, and there wasn't. I mean, obviously, crime's been happening forever, but there wasn't that. I mean, I wore it on the Oyster bracelet around London, no issues, and I'm trying to recapture that almost like first watch feeling by wearing this again around the world, because it sat in the safe for like 3 years.
That's sad.
And it's my first watch. There's like I got it the day I'm the like least sociable person ever, and my wife and I decided to host an engagement party in Chiswick, actually, just down the road. And I bought that watch the day of our engagement party to try and be like, how am I going to spend like the evening with 150 people? I'm like really kind of introvert, and so I have like mixed feelings when wearing that watch, but the evening was amazing and it changed everything for me. So that watch takes me back to that moment, and I'm trying to wear that watch as much as I can, because a watch like that sat in the safe is a real shame.
Any songs attached to the watch?
Not songs to that watch, but I think the second Vamps world tour was that. I've got so many pictures from around the world in that watch where I'm on stage, on the Oyster bracelet and stuff. I for some reason I always think of Japan with this, because I think there's a picture of us playing in Japan, and I'm kind of like doing that.
You are psychotically popular in Japan. Like, could you even walk the streets in Japan?
With a shaved head, I probably could. But no, we're very fortunate with Japan. I think there's an interesting and bizarre kind of connection between British bands, especially like musical bands, and Japanese fans, and maybe it stems from like the Beatles, I don't know, but they have a real affinity to
kink,
to people. Yeah, a kink, I guess. So yeah, go on, you give me one.
Okay, so I'm gonna open this and look. Let's.
Am I gonna change the camera?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm gonna try and I'm gonna go one by one. I had never worn this watch, and yet it had been sitting in the Time+Tide Watch Discovery Studio with me walking past it every day, just going,
okay,
yeah, I'm going to wear this watch.
Okay.
It's such a cute concept. So we have, it's the Zodiac in white ceramic with this really, it's like a milky off-white sunray dial, like orange chapter ring, orange tropic strap, like kind of a symphony of off-whites. Like the indices are really blocky, but they're also kind of...
That dial is, I don't know
interesting, isn't it?
People will be able to see it from that top thing, but when you see it in the light and it moves, yeah, it almost reminds me of, on my guitar, some of the mother of pearl markers on the
inlay.
Yeah.
The inlaid, the dots on the...
Yeah, the dots,
on the fretboard.
Yeah, that's really cool, actually.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? So I'd been sitting there, and the bezels, like it's a really affordable white ceramic piece, and I wore that on the Australian trip, and especially on every beach day, because I think white ceramic is such a Miami Vice kind of summery flex.
Yeah.
I loved it. I really enjoyed wearing it, and we just don't sell them. Like, people just don't seem to.
Why do you think that is?
I just wonder whether do people know about the fact that there's white ceramic Zodiacs for like £1,500? I mean, the value proposition is really good, and it's for so really summery option there, and travel watch in the sense that definitely a watch you can just wear throughout all of the holiday type occasions during the day, and one that the more tanned you get, the more the whiter it looks as well.
Yeah.
So,
and also for I wonder how many people that have got into F1 more recently are thinking, oh, this is like the McLaren watch. Like it makes me think of McLaren straight away. Just from that orange.
White and the orange.
Yeah. It's really cool. This is the first Zodiac I've ever held.
Really?
I've got friends that are really into Zodiac, and I've always, seen them, but never had one. So let's move on to my second one, which is my actual latest pickup. So here we go. This is my CWC G10. Now
this thing's cheap, right?
Yeah. So this was 250 quid.
Yes.
And what
NATO.
Yeah, and what's exactly. So I've got to give a special mention to Jonathan, who has been selling. Well, him and his dad have been selling watches in Farringdon for, I think, like 50 years. And what I love about Jonathan is so basically, like, there's a few people in the watch community that know I've been obsessing over tritium for ages, and I don't own anything with tritium. And I also really for a while I was looking at maybe doing like a Dirty Dozen original.
Doing one as in buying one, finding one.
Yeah. Like, well, I mean, look, I'd love an original Vertex just because obviously Don's a great guy.
Don Cobden.
Yeah, I've got a couple of modern Vertex, so I was thinking of that. But then there's so many. The IWCs around. Anyway, and then Jonathan messaged me and he was like, "Well, I love vintage military pieces. Come in, blah blah blah." And then he said, "Well, look, like this has just come in, part of a trade, I think." And he was like, "Are you interested?" And I was like, "Well, it's from 2006, so it's not going to have like tritium." And he said, "Well, no, the British military."
Why are you obsessed with tritium?
I don't know. I think
worried about it.
I just love on vintage pieces in particular. I love that it kind of contributes to the romanticism of imagining where the watch has been and what it's done and all that bullshit we tell ourselves into spending
Please
money.
Don't say that, man. Let's keep enabling each other.
So I said, well, tritium, I think like 97 did it stop or something? And he said, well, no, the MOD kept using the tritium dials until they ran out. So this is from, I think, 2006, and it's still got that tritium dial. And, for 250 quid, or I think, on average, they're around 300, you can get something that's, this was issued, but this was issued to someone in the Navy, which I think makes it a little bit more rare, maybe. Have I got that right? Yes, I have got that right. And what I find hilarious about this is, you can wear this on a battleship, and you can't swim in it. Like, I just find that such a bizarre, like...
Why not? What's the water resistance?
I don't think there is any. I mean, it probably splash proof.
There isn't even a single atmos.
But I don't. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm near enough certain you can't properly swim. It's not screw down crown or anything. So,
do you know what I like about it?
Yeah,
I've never ever held one of these watches either. Just to repay that, is this kind of gunmetal grey tone to the. It reminds me a little bit of the Hamilton khaki fields, which has anodized steel, but this is, and there's just some kind of curvaceous elements to the case. It isn't sort of blocky and unrefined. It's actually got like a scooped out transition from the bezel to the case, and it is in this unusual grey. Like it's not a silver. It's not a straight silver.
No, it's not. And I think what's maybe off-putting for a lot of people at the start is I think it's 35 mil. So it's like you'd think, that's really small. Yeah. You know what? I do need to measure my wrist because every time I see Instagram posts and they're like, "Oh, this is on a blah 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 size wrist," I don't know what that is. But I've got really small wrists to the point of like, I spent a fair bit of time on Reddit about a year ago, and I would just get slated for having one, apparently rubbish tattoos that faded, and two, really small wrists. So now I just like...
Why are you so mean, Reddit?
I know. But you know what? I think what's been interesting is it seems the past sort of 2 years, smaller watches are in, and with maybe the kind of reemergence of vintage coming to the forefront, which is brilliant. It means that something like a 35 mil that maybe 3 years ago I probably wouldn't have even considered.
Yeah.
Now it's a wearable size for me, and this is the perfect watch, like I was saying before, where I can chuck it on as long as I'm not swimming in the sea or something. I can chuck it on a NATO and just kind of go about my day. I mean, it'll get scratched to hell, but a bit of buff, it'll be fine, and I love it.
It's
and
a good shout, man.
Yeah, it'll just age with me.
I do like having a super budget option in the mix because
it doesn't feel rubbish though as well. Like, it still feels like a serious watch.
You've managed to still tell some kind of a story about it. You even knew which of the forces it was commissioned to. That's pretty impressive for a £250 watch. Now, my next watch is a watch that I was so excited to bring into, a brand that I was so excited to bring into London and to experience myself. Like a lot of the Time+Tide Watch Discovery Studio brands are brands that I just wanted to try myself. Totally selfish. Serica. This brand is freaking,
Ooh,
look at this.
that's clean, isn't it?
It's super clean.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't see one of them at the event last month. I didn't get around to it, but
I'd already pinched it.
I think wow.
So you play with that.
Yeah.
But this was one I definitely wanted to take on holidays because it's a diver. It's got a Milanese bracelet or that sort of mesh style bracelet, which is dressy.
I actually love that.
I wore that with shirts when we'd go out at night.
Yeah.
But the diver credentials just mean that it's completely, again, you don't really have to consider what you're doing that day because it's going to be robust. It's going to be waterproof. It's going to be ready. So
what's cool about that
really enjoyed it.
dial? I mean, like, find a, like, there's no branding there. You're so used to seeing like the name there, and that is really cool. I really like that. I think
you could. I was thinking this could be something for you.
I think so, actually. How do I do? Oh, that's really cool. That is that. You know what? I think, not to discount what I've brought, that is that's a really cool travel watch. That, isn't it?
People like that. Yeah.
That is, because it's kind of, what's it making me think of? I don't know.
It's that vintage silhouette, right? And there's so many vintage nuances. Like Serica is an example of how you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you have to add nuances to the wheel. It can't be a straight up, effectively like 5 or 10% tweak on a vintage design. Like Serica, to me, feels really singular, and it feels like it has a strong brand identity, even though there's no branding, and it is still built off similar vintage silhouettes as other watches.
So does it not say the brand anywhere on the dial?
I actually don't think so.
I don't.
It's got something on the bezel, right? What does it say on the bezel?
Minutes and hours.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
It's basic.
That's really cool.
This is minimalism done well, though.
Yeah, massively. It's what do these retail at normally? Do you know?
I'm not good at this. Maybe 1,200.
Okay, yeah. So it's not like $5,000 kind of thing.
No.
Okay, yeah.
The build quality is strong. The bracelet's really comfortable, and I find the whole bracelet construction quite like eccentric and odd.
Yeah.
That is a perfect size for your
what
wrist.
is it? 30, 37 and a half, 38, is it? Or it's not 40. I don't think it's 40.
37.
Let's try and...
Yeah, it's way smaller.
Yeah, it's very wearable. And on this bracelet as well, like... Yeah, I've got one more to go.
I want to hear about this one.
Yeah, this is really different. Well,
I did not know you owned this.
So this kind of bucks the trend of, I think, what I've done with the previous two, and it kind of is going back to what I was saying about finding typical dress watches slightly boring. So this is the Zenith El Primero Chronomaster, and for me, like, I'm rubbish at this. There we go. I know that you like Zenith, Andrew, and like modern. Oh, look at that. And like modern Zenith, but for me personally, I'm a bit lost with modern Zenith. I think for me, like, this is this era. So this is from the year 2000. This is a golden era for Zenith. If you look at, I don't know how many complications this has. 5 maybe. You've got day,
calendar, all the
month. Date, Moonphase, chronograph, like, and I think there's, if we didn't say that it kind of reminds us of Patek, then I think we'd be doing ourselves a disservice. So you're getting that feeling of Patek almost, especially with that case sort of like stepped up. But
I do love that.
But this is $3,500. One of these.
So that's value, and this to me. I do like vintage Zenith a lot. I'm so in the moment though with iterating the modern Zenith, like especially the way that the Skyline has taken the El Primero and just used the high beat engine of the watch to drive that super manic running seconds. Like, I like the way that the brand is playing with its movement heritage, and I like the way that it's modernizing. And frankly, the Defy Skyline, the Night Surfer, Defy Classic Night Surfer and the Defy Skyline Skeleton Night Surfer are just exciting to me to have been part of the story.
Yeah, I get it.
But this is exactly what made Zenith. This is a huge movement flex. It's all of the things.
and I think, for me, the design language of this just kind of speaks more to me maybe than modern stuff. That's not to discount what they're doing now. Just for me personally, that is the sort of watch that gets me excited. And as I say, for the money, it's great. And yeah, from the year 2000. So it's not so like part of the reason that I ended up going with this is I'm kind of still going through this tri-compacts phase from your sort of like late 40s era, and they're amazing watches, but there's so much that can go wrong when you're dealing with like quite high complications in watches that are from the 40s, right? So I was going through
getting that kind of like new car smell in a vintage car.
Yeah, exactly. So then when that came along, I was like, well, this is ticking so many boxes. Like every so often I'll post a picture of this in one of the WhatsApp groups I'm in with various collectors, and it always gets people saying, "Oh, I didn't even know about this." It's still kind of slightly under the radar. And as I say, for £3,500 to £4,000, I think what can you get with that many complications from a brand like Zenith from a really interesting time? I don't know. And also they do it in yellow gold, which and they also they do a black dial, I think in steel as well, but then black dial and that kind of silvery dial in yellow gold, and that's around about 6K, I think, around there. And like again, to have a precious metal watch that kind of gives that Patek feeling with those complications, I don't know where you'd spend that money and get that much out of, if you know what I mean.
And as I look at them from this angle, like the applied indices and then, the applied Roman numerals, and then being that high polish, you're getting this beautiful contrast of
there
like
is,
silvery Roman numerals on this more muted grey case. Really nice.
So, I mean, and that is what I'm saying about, like, I get bored with a typical dress watch, but I feel like I can take that. That can count as dress watch, but I could also wear that with like a t-shirt and jeans and get away with that whilst traveling. So that's why I picked that one as my last one.
I'd never thought of you with a watch like that, but I'm constantly being drawn to watches I didn't really know about and didn't know that I needed. And this is a Farah. This was the first Farah that I purchased. Even though like we believed enough in the brand to really want them in the studio, and we knew that they're selling 5,000 watches a year,
right? Okay,
and they're largely a UK audience for their watches, and they've got a strong UK in terms of the tribe that they've built as one of the, I suppose, best known British brands. But then this to me summed everything up that I wanted from Farah, which is I wanted that sort of quaint, slightly historical English feel in the colorway. So I got this like robin's egg blue. I got this, it's almost like a faded paper off-white, and there's this really cheerful faded canary yellow. So it kind of looks like a vintage tourism poster. These are, you do it, so I can say on mic, but these are colors that to me, oh God, that looks good. So this is a Monopusher chronograph Farah. Cobb is the name of the model.
Okay.
And it has this wonderful asymmetric subdial configuration, open case back with some nice decoration, that movement plate.
Yeah.
And then a knurled mid case, which is showing there. It's a really interesting little
cool
touch. It reminds me of Bremont a little bit, having that knurled mid case, but really thoughtful details all through it. But that colorway with that tan strap, I wore this many times on the holiday when I wanted to change out of like beach mode into clothes that I would not wear on the beach. I found that it's, like the penguin, like a faded penguin book.
Yeah.
It's sort of like almost yellowy pages. There's like a yellowy type of, it just reminded me of some slice of England that I found super attractive. And again, just kind of quaint, very gentlemanly, classic handsome. I'm just throwing words out. I'm just saying words. Just lots of free association. But it's somehow, do you get my Englishness?
I do.
Insane?
Especially that yellow. It really does. it does kind of, it makes you feel this romanticism that you're
Yes,
like, where's that
that's the
from?
word.
There's like a nostalgia with this watch, even though it's new.
Yeah.
What I love about this is there's a lot going on as well. You know, you've got the date GMT as well. Like it's in theory, it's falling.
Monopusher GMT.
Yeah.
Date.
It's falling into
useful.
the category that I would put my Zenith in. For me,
Mm-hmm.
what can I take that could be dressy but is not boring?
Yeah.
And for me, like, I feel like, you can dress that up, dress that down.
There's something about this that is just stonkingly handsome and classic.
And I think the more you look at it, the more you kind of pick up sort of like that slanted, like in a track. Like it's really, and what's funny about this is there's actually like a lot of different colors going on. And in theory, you'd be like, that shouldn't work, but somehow it just does.
It all comes together. I find that it's just so charming. It's one of the most beautiful watches I think I've seen in recent times. And it crept up on me. And then I wore it in Queensland and in Melbourne and with my friends in Australia. And every single one of them was like, what is that? Like, so that closes out my 3 travel watches. Had to have a GMT in there.
Yeah.
I think I clearly win for being the only one with a GMT. Like, at least I can keep track of what's happening in
that's
London.
why I did the honorary mention of the Grand Seiko. I realized also that I did, GMT is my favorite complication, and I realized I didn't bring one. But since parting ways with my Explorer 2, I've got a Tudor Black Bay Pro that comes around a lot with me, but I think if I'm being honest, I'm going to I'm going to Japan in October, and I'm starting the process of like, 1, watch fund, and then 2, what shall I get when I'm there to buy in Japan?
Yeah, wow.
And I'm thinking I go back to Explorer 2. I think I'm going to go similar era to this Zenith, maybe like mid-90s. That, because the reality is I miss having a GMT Rolex, and the Explorer 2 is my favorite line from Rolex. Maybe it's time to go back.
Thank you for watching. James, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me, man. I want to know who thinks that your sort of travel pack is better than mine.
And we're going to have a clear winner, which you will be a part of by voting in the description. But, vote me. Let's get going.